glorified, and the people of God edified.
The thoughts, views, and comments expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production of Glory 93.9 FM.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street.
Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women.
Wardrobe provided by Bahari Bahamas. Visit shopbahari.com. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, on today's show, we are going to be talking about the WTO. And I am calling this show the WTO, Highway to Heaven or Dirt Road to Hell. Because we need to understand this, I believe, because even though the government sort of pulled back on the push that they were moving towards WTO, there are some out there who believe that that is just a temporary pullback, and that if reelected, they will move full steam ahead towards becoming a part of the WTO. And so that's what we're going to be talking about on the show today. And my guest today is a gentleman who has been sounding the alarm with regard to his opposition to the WTO, the Bahamas' ascension to the WTO, for quite some time now. And he has decided to up the ante even more now that he has declared himself a candidate for the next election. My guest this morning is Kendle Colebrooke, also known as KCX. And KCX, welcome to the show this morning.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.
Now, I just want to say at the outset that this is not a show about politics per se. This is not a show about what's going on between you and the Coalition of Independents and all that kind of stuff. So all of y'all out there who get excited when you hear KCX on the show, we ain't going there today. We are talking strictly WTO today. Okay, so I say that so you all out there could stay focused, because I know some of my people just go, you all just get a little excited. So let's stay focused. And we're going to be talking specifically about the WTO. Now, KCX, you have been sounding the alarm about the WTO for a very, very long time. You think that it's a bad idea for the Bahamas to become a part of the WTO. So in a nutshell, why are you so dead set against it? And we're obviously going to break it down as we go throughout the show over the course of the next 2 hours. But why are you getting the heebie-jeebies when you think about us ascending to the WTO?
Thank you for having me again, Michelle. I want to say before we get started to the listening audience, I need you to share the show because this is the show for the information on your future. The reason why I've taken a stance against the WTO is because I operate under something called common law. Show me where it's operated or activated or in use, and then give me the numbers. Give me the science behind why should we join something that the science don't approve of. The science proved that WTO has destroyed third world developing nations. Even first world countries like America is catching hell from the WTO. So that's one of the reasons I picked up the mantle to stop WTO since 2001. And WTO is actually is the World Trade Organization. It's disguised as something to trade. Actually, back in 1995, it became the WTO. It started back in 1947, sorry, shortly after World War II. The country's 23 nations decided that we were going to trade across border, and that was called GATT, the General Agreement of Tariff and Trade. So those countries, it only included goods, it didn't include services. But because they only traded goods, the rules of that body did not affect the service industry, Intellectual Property Act. It did not affect anything that you import to your country other than goods. It was able to come through the borders probably almost tariff-free, no taxes. And the 23 nations that operated under GATT were successful. Their economy grew by 6% every year. So here comes 1995, when WTO sets in. WTO now sets in and says, okay, we have a good track record. Now 123 other nations now are part of this body. They thought it was GATT because GATT worked, and WTO is running on a record of GATT, and WTO can't stand alone by itself. There's never been a success story other than China for the WTO. The WTO had 164 other nations now a part of it, and it is a failed experiment. And the Bahamas government should use actually the Bahamian people should wake up and understand that somebody believe that us not being able to own our own destiny, call our own shots, and being able to trade with whomever we want to trade on any conditions that we feel that we need to trade on, they feel that we should give that over to a failed experiment, which is the WTO.
So let me ask you something. You're calling this a failed experiment. Is it a failed experiment for all or a failed experiment for some?
It's a failed experiment for all but China. China is it's a producing nation, and they come under, imagine this, they're still considered a developing nation. You believe it? So whatever benefits that a developing nation gets, China gets the same benefits. It's unfair. It's an unfair treaty. And I think we need to pull away from even attempting that. Most countries that become a part of WTO takes 5 years, only 5 years. We are the only country on the planet that has signed on to the WTO, actually made a session to the WTO that has taken this long to sign on to the WTO, the one world government. We're the only country that has taken 20 years now. And on November 29th of this year, our government will be signing us on to the WTO if we don't stop them one more time.
And you say that based on what knowledge? Where do you get this information from?
Well, knowledge is right out there. Not to know is a choice. Just Google it. When is the next WTO meeting? It's in Geneva, Switzerland, November 29th.
How do you know the Bahamas how do you know that we would finally sign on to it at that time?
Well, we pushed so hard last year against them, they missed the date because they couldn't answer one question. One question they couldn't answer is there are agreements made between countries, plurilateral and bilateral. So you go and sit down with countries and you say to the countries, this is what we're going to allow you to bring your wood into this country for. We're going to allow you to bring your steel into this country for. See, but because it's so unique, the Bahamas is so unique, we have something called the Grand Bahama Port Authority and the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement. And it's something called the most favorite nation. And in the most favorite nation, it means you treat every WTO member equally. So once we sign on to the WTO, that same agreement that we have at the Port Authority where their businesses pay no taxes, zero, ZET, the only taxes the businesses here in Grand Bahama pay is when they pay for consumables. You know, they buy toilet paper, they pay duty on that. But then you bring in an equipment cost $10 million, you don't pay no duty on it. So the Bahamas government depends on the revenue at the border. So we'll be the only country on the planet where the government makes absolutely not one penny at the border. And that's why they missed that date. Now, we're at a place where here comes, we don't know what this agreement they made with the WTO. You know, you have to give your assessment on what treaties, what tariffs that you will remove, or which sector of the society or in service that you will remain for Bahamians, which there is none. There is no reserve, no business is reserved for Bahamians anymore. Not under the WTO in the Bahamas. There will not be one business available for Bahamians anymore in this WTO accession. So the WTO, they missed the date last year because of that same question. What are you going to do with the agreement with the Port Authority? Saying that you have to treat every WTO member equally. You can't even treat a Bahamian better than you treat a foreigner. There's no benefit for the Bahamians in the WTO. And they couldn't answer that. So they missed the date. So the next date for signing is the next time they meet in Geneva, Switzerland.
Okay, I get that. So what is to say that why are you so certain that they will actually be able to sign on this next go round? Why are you so certain that it won't be a case where they get delayed again?
Well, I'm not going to take their word for it. We shouldn't have been this far in the first place. No one is able to give me the numbers. No one is able to say this will benefit the people of the Bahamas. Imagine this. 90% of the world trade happens on the ocean, right? You could imagine it doesn't help the poor. And today, there'll be 25,000 people die today from hunger, all within WTO countries. So we are not implementing something to help the Bahamian people and uplift them out of poverty. We don't need it. We don't need it. Until someone is able to show me, and I give anybody the platform to please explain to me what is the benefit of the Bahamians being a part of the WTO. I'm not asking about the corporations. I want to know, how does the Bahamian people benefit? You know who benefits? These corporations here in Grand Bahama, like a Farmer Cam, who trades their goods now. They're the number one trade of goods out of this country. They pay not one penny. All of the oil holding facilities, all of the pharmaceutical companies, they pay not one penny here in Freeport. Now that model will be all through the Bahamas, all through the Bahamas. How do we sustain ourselves? You know, we think that the government was looking out for our best interests when they implemented value-added tax. Now, value-added tax was considered before the 2012 general election. And here it is, that when the PLP took over, they just carried on the message that we need to implement value-added tax. But the mode they say is, and one thing with the government and anyone that's trying to implement these things.
You mean when the FNM took over?
Pardon me?
You said when the PLP took over. You mean when the FNM took over?
No, when the PLP took over.
Okay, explain that again.
2012. In 2011, they were getting ready to implement value-added tax because they were getting ready to sign on the WTO. Okay. Don't forget, they're getting ready to lose all their revenue at the border. So they lied. They told us a fib. They said that we have to pay down this national debt. So we're going to ask the Bahamian people to sacrifice. And we need you to sacrifice because we can't pass this debt on to the next generation. And that's admirable of the government to be thinking about the next generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was not true. They knew we were getting ready to sign on to WTO. They knew they were getting ready to sign us on to the one world government. So they implemented value-added tax. And today, we've collected $9 billion plus of value-added tax and not one penny paid on the national debt. See, this is a madness when you think that the government is going to implement something to pay down the national debt. They've never paid on the national debt since 1973.
Wow. Well, clearly there will be those out there who are disagreeing with what you're saying now, and they're trying to argue that this is actually a good thing for the Bahamas. And when the present administration was really pushing for it, they had a lot of spokespersons out there, Zhivargo Lang, and we found a clip with Brent Simonet and Zhivargo Lang, both talking about the supposed benefits of the WTO to the Bahamas. Delton, I want you to get that clip ready for me. That's the one with Brent Simonet. Let's go to that clip now.
Persons coming to work here, persons coming to open business. So, for instance, we had the Commercial Enterprise Bill, which we passed in Parliament some time ago, which identified industries that we do not have here. Okay. Recently in Parliament, we did the BH1 visa, which allows basically techie people to come here, set up a tech industry, which we hope will bring Bahamians into that area, will cause employment for persons renting properties, buying cars, and then we'll grow the industry into a national industry. Yeah. And the same is parallel with WTO. We're making sure that the areas we protect are the areas where Bahamians are invested in.
Well, is there a most important thing that Bahamians need to know about what membership in the WTO will mean for the Bahamas?
I think they need to grasp this opportunity because it will result in modernization of the Bahamas, not to be scared of it, and to realize we are poised to grow the economy, which will affect every Bahamian.
I mean, let's be clear. WTO, IMF, World Bank, United Nations, these global governance institutions have issues. I mean, and people have globally seen them with some suspicion, and so that's understandable. They are imperfect, but a world absent them is not a world I can tell you I want to live in. Okay. Also, there's lots of people who don't know. I mean, listen, I've been studying international trade and economics for years. Mm-hmm. There are many, many things about international trade and economics that I still have yet to learn. If you're an average citizen, you're not taking up with this, you're doing your business, etc. You have issues because you don't necessarily know. I understand that. There are the agreements, there are about 60 agreements that govern the WTO. They have not 20,000 pages, as some people say, 500 pages. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to take time to read all of that, study that up, etc.
All right, KCX. So, if you listen to Brent in that clip, that sounds like, oh man, this is something that we need to sign on like yesterday. What are we waiting on? And then Zhivargo goes on to say in that clip, it's not a world that I would want to live in without being a part of the WTO. I thought that was profound. How do you respond to both gentlemen?
Starting with Zhivargo Lang, tell him he's living in a world without the WTO right now. All his life he was living in a world without the WTO.
He's not happy with this world that he's living in and figure it would be better going forward with them than without.
Keep in mind, what you heard him talk about was the Commercial Enterprise Bill. There's now law that allows companies to be able to come here like they do now and bring their staff and not hire one Bahamian. They also have a H-1B visa. Then that visa allows those people who work at that company to bring their families over and start companies also and find employment. That doesn't benefit the Bahamian people, not one penny. I mean, we find ourselves in a position where our government has been lying to us, and I use that word lying to us. Remember this, everything that I say, I can be arrested for if it's not the truth. For over 30 years, I've been telling you what's going on in this country, and I was never arrested for what I said. I was only arrested a number of times, not for what I said, but for actually getting out and protesting. And every one of the protests that I was arrested for, I won. Since 1916, we had something in place called fake news. Right after World War I, World War II, sorry, this law was in effect. They've taken the same law and now they've said, because we have technology, so if you go on social media and you lie or you fabricate any information, you can be arrested. Why am I never arrested for what I'm saying? Because it's the truth. The only time the government came and responded to something that I said was when I revealed the true value of the conch shells. And they didn't even come after what I said. They came after and said, well, the Chinese are taking it and they're cleaning up the shorelines for us. The true value of conch shells is almost priceless. And they know it. But what I'm saying here today, ladies and gentlemen, is facts. They often say, where is the science behind it? Where are the numbers behind this? And nobody's asking, where are the numbers that's behind WTO that says it works? Nobody's saying, especially from the PLP or the F&M. As a matter of fact, here it is, they're going forward and telling you what's good for you during the election season. They're putting things in there, what is good for you in their manifesto, but there's no mention about this WTO. So as someone could tell me, please, where does it benefit the Bahamian people? And I challenge someone. I don't want to say I know it all. I want somebody to please prove me wrong, because we have a country to protect. We have a next generation to protect. And the WTO is the end game. The WTO will destroy every business here, local business, Bahamian-owned business. As a matter of fact, can you imagine? You see the people on the side of the road selling their water? They will not be able to sell water. You see the people in the water companies? They're going to have a hell of a time keeping their license. You see the people, the contractors? Right now, they're sending the new application out for the contractors to pull out. And none of them are going to be able to qualify to have a license to do construction work. See, because you're getting ready to go into the global world. Anyone that has that license will be able to go in any WTO country and be able to do work. But in order to have that contract, the contractor's license, you must have built a 4-story or above in order to be considered a licensed contractor. And not only that, if you don't have it, you will have to work under someone that has that license for 10 years. So we're going backwards. We're going backwards, and we don't need to do that. You see the government putting something in place now for the Bureau of Standards. What do you think that's all about? Like the water company, like people that do their pastries, you won't be able to do that. You need to understand that you're getting ready to trade globally. In order to trade globally, you got to make sure that your food and your water pass through a machinery called a photosanitary machinery. And you need to purchase that. That costs a minimum $250,000. So how does a small man compete with the global world? This WTO is like a monopoly game. It's finished. You don't join the monopoly game after it started. We are going in a direction that has failed the Caribbean and other third world developing nations. And that's why this fight is worth dedicating my life. I'm dedicated my life to fighting this. Somebody has to stand up for the people, and that's what I've done.
Wow. Okay, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, let's look at some of those examples of what has happened in the Caribbean to the countries that have adopted the WTO, and whether or not we should be concerned about what we have seen happening in those countries. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Glory 93.9 FM, the people's favorite gospel station.
Located on Carmichael Road, Divine Designs Hair Boutique is a haven for women and men looking for professional beauty services. Our state-of-the-art and contemporary equipment creates a relaxing ambiance for you to enjoy while we cater to you. Need a hairstylist? We cater to all types and textures of hair for care and styling. We even have a barber on duty. Need a nail tech? Our technicians provide a range of nail services, including the latest trends. Unwind in one of our massage chairs while you get your pedicure. With our reasonable rates, friendly staff, and over 20 years of experience, you will be in great hands. Call us at 823-1669 or 698-1025 to schedule your appointment. Want to be pampered? Want to be slayed? Let Divine Designs make your day.
Woy, 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 here calamity. Woy, 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 don't want that be me. Let me get this coverage, do it once and for all. Insurance management is who I gonna call.
When calamity strikes, we're here to keep you safe and secure. With offices in Nassau, Freeport, Abacoy, Lutheran, and Exuma. Insurance management, we cover the Bahamas.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guest today is Kendle, KCX Colebrooke. We're talking about the WTO. And boy, KCX, we're getting a lot of comments. Some people are not happy with what they're hearing today, and we're going to go ahead and read a couple of them, but it's a lot. Okay, let me see. Let me try to pick out a couple of them because this is quite a bit. Okay, so Jamie says, let's talk about how businesses in Grand Bahama that hold bond licenses, yet they pay for the fuel for power for their business offices. Rochelle says, thank you, KCX. You can't trust this government with nothing. Stacy is not happy with you. Stacy says, KCX has a split personality. And, and then Stacey goes on to say, I lost all respect I had for KCX when he tried to blame Clint Watson because of what he said about Lincoln Bain. I told you we ain't going there today. We're not talking about that today. Trifina says, anything Brent agrees to, not interested. They are the real snakes. Let's see. Bertha says, whoever wins the next election better get rid of that commercial enterprise bill. Boy. Let me keep going. Rochelle says, that's right. You think Bahamians don't have jobs now? Let them bring that here. Bahamians will suffer even more. Okay, I'll go ahead and let you respond to some of those, KCX.
It's amazing. No matter what is said, we still concentrate on trivial things. Here it is, you're hearing some information that will destroy this country, and you're still focused on trivial things. This fight is not for you. This is for the next generation of Bahamians. I think every Bahamian should pick up this fight and protect their families and the next generation. So for me to respond to somebody that is in a deep sleep, I will be the fool. All right? So the WTO is the real conversation. Imagine this. Anyone out there, we talking about natural resources. In the WTO, it says it is for open marketness. It cannot be protected. We can't protect the minerals in this country if the World Trade Organization takes hold of this country. There is nothing in the WTO for the Bahamian people. Imagine some of these things and terminologies you've been hearing. You've been hearing about government procurement. Who in the government smart enough to know about government procurement? They're being dictated to. You hear about single window market. Who in the government smart enough to be able to set up a system that calls single window market, where all of the government purchases, all of the government contracts goes into this one single window? And watch this. In this single window, companies from 164 other nations will be able to bid on government jobs. You will be able to get give government purchases. All right, any purchase, the government wants to purchase a pen, they can sell the government direct. They don't need to go to these retail companies here in the Bahamas. That's real serious, guys. No matter what you're doing, WTO affects you. You say you have a government job? Imagine this. The government will lose 95 to maybe 100% of their revenue at the border. How are you going to be employed? Think about what I'm saying. This is a serious fight. This is the conversation we should demand from the PLP and the FNM. If you're taking us there, why you're not campaigning on it? And like I said, I challenge anyone to come at KCX with any kind of information pertaining to the betterment of this country. This WTO, it is the end game for all Bahamians. As a matter of fact, under the Perry Christie administration, they had Ryan Pinder, who was the lead negotiator. Ryan Pinder has since changed his position. You know why? When he had a meeting with the U.S. Lead negotiator, his team and Ryan Pinder heard these words. When I forgot his name, I should have written it down, but the U.S. representative says, are you aware that everything that comes out of the United States of America, once you join the WTO, it comes in here at 0 rate. You can't charge no tariff on it. Ryan Pinder said, and these are the exact words, that will destroy our local economy. That will destroy our local economy. This ain't no time to be playing. This ain't no time to be playing with no feelings. And I lost respect for Casey. Man, Casey been fighting for his country all his life. He been fighting and building men. and the men that I've built over the years, I'm fighting to make sure they have a country to exercise their rights in, and to be all they can be in this country. That's what I'm doing. That's all I'm doing.
I want to go back to a couple more texts. Comments, our Facebook viewers. Stacy again says, the WTO will be introduced sooner or later. Y'all have to wake up and see how the world is being ran. She also says, we are a small fish in a big pond. How do you respond to that, KCX? Because
that's a perfect position. Here is where you understand what you are worth as a nation. Our geographical location in itself gives us the power to say no to WTO. Why? They have to use our airspace. They have to use our sea lanes. If we have control of these things, we can determine who we trade with. As a matter of fact, ask yourself, what do we need out of Germany? What do we need out of France? Most of our trade is right in the United States of America. Why do we need to imagine? There's something called the EPA. That's the European Partnership Agreement. We signed on to the EPA only because we wanted to trade crawfish. That's the only reason. But what did that do to us? The EPA and the European Partnership Agreement is more liberal than the WTO. They have laws in there where it's called non-discrimination policies, that you can't discriminate under no circumstances for no reason. You cannot discriminate. And I don't quote me on this, but I really believe those 4 bills, and that's number 4, you know, the one where the same-sex marriage, I think that had something to do with the EPA. And most of the laws that we have in our books, it goes against the WTO. And
all right, we have a call on the line. I want you to stick a pin in that right there because the caller's been waiting for a bit, and I don't want to lose the call. Caller, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. Always a pleasure. KCX, my brother, what's happening?
Hey, grade 1.
I've been following your videos for a while. They've always been very informative, and I like the job you've been doing over the period of time that you've started up until now. My question to you really is, KCX. The leadership, I believe, or would you agree with me when saying that the leadership or whoever we select in the coming election will determine if we continue with the World Trade Organization? Because right now, Customs is revamping their structure to accommodate the rules which the WTO will impose on our customs setup, our trade setup, as you well know. So a lot of things will be changing because it's going to be free trade, as you explained earlier. Now, with that in mind, if we already signed up, okay, could the coming government have the option to pull out, or once you signed, always sign? That's my question to you.
Great. Listen, are you aware, and thank you so much for following, man. Listen, are you aware that they're not asking us to join? We want to join? And imagine that everything that they are implementing is good for this country. To click declare for customs, that's awesome. The government procurement for the transparency, that is awesome. The single window market, all of these things are good, but we are not ready to compete with the rest of the world. We didn't prepare our people. In Singapore, what they did 20 years when they knew they wanted to get into the WTO, they prepared their people. They didn't stick with just service. They didn't say, you know what, just go find a job. They prepared their people for it. And the people were prepared for WTO. We're not ready to compete on the global stage.
Well, not the majority of us are not ready, but there are some who are. And
name one.
There will be a handful of Bahamians who will benefit because they have the resources, they have the technology, they have everything that they would need. But that is not
Michelle, I love that attitude, but Rupert Roberts will get wiped off his feet.
Yeah.
So he will get wiped off his feet.
Somebody has a comment here that says, why does Rupert Roberts, owner of SuperValue, have a poster in his food store that says no to WTO?
Because he knows better. because he knows better.
He knows the threat level. He's aware of the threat level.
Mm-hmm. He's low-hanging fruit.
Threat level. Exactly. He's aware of the threat level. And when you've had a monopoly in something as important as food in this country, that amount of competition, he's not willing to accept. He's not willing to accept that. That's a different ball game. And like KCX aptly mentioned, in the countries like Singapore, because I was actually doing some reading up on this, and our market, boy, the carriers global, boy, that's going to be a bit strange. And he gave the example of one of the credentials, say, of construction, you getting people bidding on contracts, and you having to have built a structure 4 stories and up, or whatever the case is. The small man is going to be wiped out. The only ones going to be eating. And that's a problem. And the same thing happened in a few other smaller countries, third world countries. The small businesses, they suffer. And if the small business suffer, the country in turn suffers. Because a small man, the country's built on the backs of him. That's pretty much what it is. And a person who's used to working for themselves, they have established their company, small company, although it is, they're not used to having to work for anybody after that. I mean, if anything, they're going to subcontract, but they're not going to be hammering nails and picking up shovels, man, and working for people like they just got on a work site for the first time. That's not going to work. That's demoralizing. That cannot happen.
Also, along with that, although you might do construction, you won't even be able to do construction on your own home. That's how serious this is.
Exactly.
You know, right now, you know, they're building the University of the Bahamas, right? And they're building the domes, right? Someone called me and said, Casey, are you aware that I just got the job to install these air conditions? I said, well, that's good, man. He said, no, someone from outside the country called me to install them. I said, what do you mean? He said, this guy never been in this country. That job went into that single window market where people are able to bid on that. And all that person did was sub that job out to that person.
That's right. And you get paid less.
And get paid less.
Has to get paid. The middleman has to get paid. That's why Alibaba, for example, makes so much money, because it's not direct. And so you see, it's scary. You really gotta do the math and break this down. Is this going to be beneficial for the country or not? The way this country is headed, I see nothing but refit, man. Like we had on the course for the last. This makes no sense. Now, KCX, I want to go, but I want to ask you something else. And because if you look at the comments, Michelle can tell you there's an elephant in the room. And I want you to touch on this briefly if possible. See, because the message is positive, the message is very clear. But for some reason, people think it's the messenger because of recent events. Now, I would appreciate, and everybody else in the chat who's listening to Michelle's show would appreciate, if you clarify this up at some point or another, in some way, because, you know, you have a lot of loyalties towards certain individuals that you were cool with for a long time. If you could. I don't mean to say it, but
you try to host my show. Who's the host of the show, me or you? I have determined that we're not going down that road today, because I made that decision, because once we go there, that's the show.
All right.
And I ain't got time to waste on fight between KCX and Lincoln and whatever else. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Okay?
I understand.
Because that will take over the show, and I don't have time for that.
That's true.
We're talking serious business here today. So for those of you who can't separate whatever your affiliation is, and listen, not today. I'm trying to get to serious business today. Now, if you got a problem with KCX being the messenger, then you know what you need to do. Maybe this ain't the show for you to watch. But I'm not going to waste any time on this show today with this back and forth between KCX and Lincoln. I don't have time for that. I'm trying to use this show to deal with serious business affecting this country. And quite frankly, the fight between KCX and Lincoln ain't going to have no impact on somebody's ability to eat. if we go in the wrong direction in this country. So let's not waste time with trivial foolishness. I'm sorry. And those of you who take offense to what I just said, hey, it is what it is. I'm sorry. But we got bigger fish to fry than a row between Lincoln and KCX. This is time for seriousness in this country. We don't have time to be playing games. And so this is why I have decided we're not going there. And I'm not going to allow you to take us there, caller. I'm sorry.
No problem, Michelle. You'll carry on.
All right, thank you. And I hope I don't lose your support by saying that, but it is what it is.
No, man. Michelle, man, that's big man. No, man, you making sense.
Yeah, man, we ain't got time for trivial foolishness. Let them go wake that out. I ain't spending no time talking about that. And people may not be able to survive in their own country. And we got time to waste talking about KCX and Lincoln fight. I ain't got time for foolishness, man. Sorry, but no. You have a good day. Thanks. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, caller.
Trivial foolishness. That's the problem in this country. We just get distracted.
Yes.
This country go hell in a handbasket and be making noise for who row and who. Man, please.
Yeah. And you know, we often talk about the elephant in the room. Let me tell you the elephant in the room. The next generation is watching us. And what are the impact are you making as an adult who's supposed to protect the next generation? What impact are you making? Are you still just waiting to be entertained? Time's gone for that. We have until November.
Okay, I did say prior to the break that we were going to talk about how acceding to the WTO has affected other Caribbean nations. Give us some examples, please.
I just sent you a video on a young man. He's screaming. He's angry about what his government has done in Jamaica. Today, construction workers are working for, get this, $1.65 per hour. I'm going to say it again. Construction workers are working for $1.65 an hour. Now, guess what? The commercial enterprise bill, that now's law, brings him to the Bahamas. If you can work, if you can find someone to work for $1.65, he can come to the Bahamas and work. We're going to have to compete with people who are used to working for less. You think you want a minimum raise? That can't happen. It can't happen. The government is not being truthful to the Bahamian people. Here you have a voice since 2001, been saying the same thing over and over, and you're gonna worry about the messenger?
So I'm forwarding that clip to my producer now. There's no profanity or anything in there, right?
Have you ever seen any of my videos with profanity?
I just making sure, because this is a gospel station now, and I don't want calling us to say we airing something where they're supposed to be on the air.
Michelle, so, I'm glad you said
the video.
I'm glad you said that, Michelle. I've been standing up for the kingdom of God for as long as I can remember. And the fight against WTO is the fulfillment of the Bible, The Bible speaks of a time when the world will become one.
Of course it does.
But it also says that there'll be a remnant that will not be a part of it. We are the only country outside of the WTO in the Western Hemisphere. You're listening to the voice that is fulfilling the Bible. And I want to know, I don't know how he's going to do it. Maybe he's going to take one of those Junkanoo groups or something to get involved in this and get all those members involved. And let's take Bay Street and let's take Parliament. This is our country. The country does not belong to our parliamentarians. It does not belong to the government. It belongs to us.
Producer Delton, let me know when that clip is ready. Let's play the clip. It's not ready yet? Okay, so they're trying to upload the clip now for him to for us to play with him, with what KCX just mentioned as it relates to the Jamaican worker complaining about conditions in his country now that they are part of the WTO. Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to read, actually, I want to save that for the last half hour of the show because this person is asking for what kind of action that we can take. Is it ready yet? No? Okay, still uploading. Okay, so this comment says, so I keep hearing these talks about the WTO threat to our country, and I 100% agree with the fight to stop this occurring, KCX, but what is the next step in the fight? You need to now put together an effective strategy because just learning or revealing something is not enough. we must take some kind of action. What is that action? How do you respond to that?
I've been protesting, and it's going to take more than just a march. It's going to take more than just a protest. It's going to take an occupy. We're going to need to occupy. There's something called the making of the Bahamas, 1958, where they brought change to the Bahamas. And it wasn't overnight. It's one where they occupied for over 36 days. And it's going to take Bahamians understanding that it's going to take some sacrifice. And we're going to have to go downtown, and we're going to have to occupy Bay Street, occupy Parliament, and take our Parliament back. I'm not one of those activists that just talk. I've organized so many protests, and I've organized and stood with so many people. I've stood with everyone besides We March. I even stood with Omar Archer for the natural resources. I stand. This is activism that, it has an action word to it. That's what I do. I make things happen. So I just need to find a few good men who wants to stand, who wants to sacrifice for the next generation. That's what I want to do. This ain't with KCX, man. This is for the next generation. This is all about the next generation. We're not here for a short time. Let's make them proud of us.
I'm being told that clip is ready. Let's go to the clip.
I mean, the same dirty boy attack. It look power good. It on a wicked tourist, and there's no war come forth. It we now vote a no election. No election, we now vote. All get a youth, we now vote. Yeah, can you see we vote for? A poverty we vote for. Watch it. Look at the rest of it. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Watch him hard work. Watch him hard work. Watch it. What? With 250 hour? 250 hour work? Watch it. Eh? Watch him dust it. Eh? So what I tell you, say? The people, as we get look of money, we're going to spend it back down at town, amongst the Chinese them. And I'll be a knock off them I can't come sell with. We not get no benefit. We don't go work and build up the country, we not get no benefit, or we picking them not get no benefit. Or we picking them are going to survive. Or we grand picking them are going to survive. Or them are going to go to good school. Or them are going to get good education. Eh? Tell me, and then not come to no politics, but come vote. Come vote for what? More of poverty? More of poverty? I'm going to make the China appear 250 hour. Uno boy.
Okay, you need to translate, please. Because I only catch a couple of words in that. In essence, what he was saying is, look how hard these people working for $1.65 an hour, and how our children and grandchildren gonna survive. That's pretty much what he was saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what he's actually saying is, he thought, just like how our Bahamian people are thinking, they're gonna vote, and they're voting for poverty. You vote, if you vote in this election and you vote for the same political parties that have gotten us here, you are voting for poverty. See, they've made the mistake. We have an opportunity not to make the mistake. And I started out the show by saying there's something called common law. And then see, common law tells you, look at another country like you just did and see what happened to them, what caused it. Now, what we have an opportunity to do is not make the mistake that they made. Now, of course, before Jamaica got in that position, they had people just like me screaming, shouting like a Muta Baruka. He's screaming, please don't join the WTO. Don't take money from the IMF. It's a trap. And this is exactly what we're doing. We're doing exactly what other failed countries have done. Now, not just the government, the people are making the same mistakes. We are focusing on trivial things. We are focusing and distracted on trivial things when the government is selling us out, when we have no hope in the WTO. This is the conversation. We should make these, both administration out. We should make them have this conversation, but we need to have the mindset that, guess what? This is my country. And I will protect this with my life, regardless of what people say about you. You got to get the mindset that, guess what? This is my country. This is not the country. This country does not belong to the politicians who I gave a job to. And if the country's going in the wrong direction, do your homework, guys. prove KCX wrong.
Okay, we got to take a break. It's 12 o'clock.
When we come back, I want to talk about farming.
On the other side of the break. So stay with us. You're watching GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM, and we're talking about the World Trade Organization. Is it the highway to heaven or dirt road to hell? We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Glory 93.9 FM. We're chasing after God's glory.
Best dress, hats off, looking like I walked out of catalog. Everybody wanna know where I got it from. Catwalk, 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 boutique, where we make fashion statements. Catwalk, boutique, where we make fashion statements.
For the latest styles in women's clothing and accessories, visit Catwalk Boutique on Robertson Road East at the Helron Plaza. At Catwalk Boutique, we make fashion statements.
Looking for an extraordinary junior high school with caring, qualified staff and affordable tuition? Then come visit us at Elite School of Excellence, an affiliate of First Step Academy. ABECA-focused and Ministry of Education approved, we foster discipline, integrity, and wisdom while molding our students for success. Call us at 341-8846 or stop by First Step Academy Schools on Fire Trail and Soldy Roads for more information.
Executive Printers is your one-stop shop for all your branding and customization needs. Letterheads, envelopes, business cards, invoices, share and gift certificates, rubber stamps, vouchers, funeral programs, brochures, flyers, banners, and promotional items like mugs, water bottles, mouse pads, and key rings, all with personable service and great quality. No project is too small or too large. For great turnaround and competitive pricing, make an executive decision. Call us at 393-5011.
Escape from the city life to Bacon Air Beach Resort in Pirateswell, Mayaguana. Relax in one of 16 air-conditioned rooms just steps away from the ocean. Enjoy scrumptious dishes in our waterfront dining room. Sip on a tropical cocktail, or if you must, stay connected with wireless internet. Nestled on one of the most beautiful beaches in the Bahamas, Bacon Air Beach Resort offers a unique vacation experience. For reservations, call 339-3726 or 463-0182.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guest today is Kendle KCX Colebrooke. We are talking about the WTO, and I want to go ahead and read a couple more of the comments that some of you have put onto our Facebook live stream. So Romel says, laugh out loud, I tell you, slavery is here, $1 and something cents. Wow, wow, wow. Clarice says, get real, Bahamas, KCX, no Lincoln, our creator. God is love. Move on to saving the Bahamas with issues that are impacting or can impact us negatively. Rochelle says, Bahamians, I'm trying to get it to come up. Bahamians better wake up. Now, here's an interesting comment. Victoria says, what qualifies KCX to speak about WTO? I really want to know. So you got to go to school to be able to speak about a topic? You got to have some kind of degree or some kind of certification to speak about a topic? There's something what we all need to be discussing. Victoria, what is your point? OMG, people.
And people don't be afraid to type these things and post it and put their name by it. Wow.
Okay, so let's talk about how the WTO would impact our farming and fisheries industries. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's start with farming. In today's world that we live in, there's a lot of GMO foods. And one of the companies, and this is something you can attest to. There's GMO foods, and one of the companies is Monsanto's. And those seeds, and this is something I encourage the government, I encourage every Bahamian to start doing. Start collecting seeds.
But make sure they're the right seeds, though, because they have genetically modified seeds as well.
Yes, I'm
saying.
saying.
Seeds, yeah.
Yes, it's so important. It's amazing we find ourselves in the same time as Joseph and the children of Israel. Store up on your seeds. They have something called the Intellectual Property Act that is attached to the WTO. And that means that patent law will be in full effect in the Bahamas. So even those seeds, fertilizers that they're selling to the Bahamas, will be selling in the Bahamas, the fertilizer that you're going to use to cause these seeds to grow will actually destroy your soil. And the only seeds that will grow in that soil is genetically modified seeds. Governments around the globe takes advantage of small developing nations like the Bahamas with good soil, good water, and good air quality by something called subsidies. They give their farmers subsidies to come into countries like this, and they supply their company, these farmers, with everything. They pay their bills, they pay their they give them the seeds, fertilizer, everything. And what does it do? They're able to sell and produce goods way cheaper than we can ever do, than BAMSI can ever produce. We are so out of our leagues, along with the fisheries. Imagine in the Doha round, they were talking about this fisheries bill where overfishing has become a problem, and they're running out of fish around the world, but not in the Bahamas yet. No, although we have poachers here, we are still the fishing capital of the world. But once we join the WTO, remember, there's a non-discrimination policy, and now farmers the fishers can come here and actually fish with nets. And we can't compete with that. So we lose, every sector of our society, every service industry. A matter of fact, if you do a study on what is WTO privatization, it'll tell you that the government has to divest itself of all services. It can't be in competition. Bahamas Air, water and sewage, every government service will have to be privatized. And you've heard members of parliament allude to it, that we have to remove ourselves and divest ourselves off of these services so that now because they say they're operating at a loss, but it's all intentional. There's a guy by the name of David Icke. He has a book out called Problem, Action, Solution. And in this book, he talks about how the government creates the problem. We, the public, we react to say, do something. And then the government does what they wanted to do in the first place by we giving them consent to do it. You hear Bahamians saying now, hey, we need to privatize. We need to give, but can you imagine Let me give you an example of privatization here in Grand Bahama, and someone alluded to it earlier. And we have a power company, right? Now, this power company was supposed to have stayed in the hands of the Grand Bahama Port Authority by the agreement. And when I say agreement, by the law, because the agreement went through Parliament. Once it goes through Parliament, it becomes law. In this agreement, it says that they're supposed to supply power to this community, not to sell it. So they've sold the company. And the way they sold it is just what they did in Nassau with the port. They said Bahamians can buy shares into the port, right? And everybody be like, yes, Bahamians are buying shares. At least they're selling it up. Yeah, but that's what they did with the power company here. But what do you think happened when they sold the company? they gave the people who had, Bahamians especially, who had shares in that company, they sold them back to them. It was a forced sale. You understand that? Now here it is. This company is able to charge us fuel surcharge. Let's not forget the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. Every company in Grand Bahama that is licensed under the Grand Bahama Port Authority, they pay no taxes, none whatsoever. So how do we in Grand Bahama still pay fuel surcharge? See, this is madness. We have a perfect example of what free trade does to our island. Look at what free trade has done to Freeport, Grand Bahama. We have no hospital in a free trade area. The government shouldn't be building. Actually, the agreement says the Port Authority was supposed to be building the hospital. But the government is building it. Why? The Port Authority is responsible for it. So this is a failed experiment here in Grand Bahama. And this same model they want throughout the Bahamas.
Very concerning. Okay, let me read one more comment because I want to personally respond to this. Clary says, let me give you a topic to discuss if bored or don't know what is important. Advisory against persons visiting the Bahamas and what economic impact it will have on us all. Clary said it's a very important topic, but I want y'all to understand the business of being a talk show host. So this show airs Monday through Friday for 2 hours. And as a talk show host, it is my job to try to ensure that we have shows that are planned so that every week I'm not scratching my head trying to figure out who am I going to talk to? What am I going to do? I've got a show tomorrow. And sometimes your back is against the wall. But generally speaking, you try to plan ahead. And so a show was planned for today before the announcement was made that the U.S. was putting us back on the list. Okay? That doesn't mean that we can't discuss that in the coming days when I don't have a planned show. But this show was planned before the announcement. So y'all need to just chill. Relax. Okay? Not to say that we're not going to get to that topic. We will get to it. But I got this. All right? Janet says, don't get caught up in personalities or the messenger. Let's focus on the message. Is the message truthful or credible? Let's all unite and focus on the issues that affect us all. Let's see. Let's scroll down. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff, y'all. This is a lot of comments today. I don't know what's happening. KCX people are responding. Okay, so Tanisha says, what doesn't qualify him? If you are having something, if you haven't something that can refute or agree with him, then state it with facts, please, and let the people know. Glenn Roll says, that's those kind you read by picture. Translate KCX, $1.65, borrow a slave to the lenders. It's time to look within, reset. All right, and I'll read one more. Bertha Utrapsino. Bertha says, what qualifies minister to be PM in this country? Suck my teeth. Oh, y'all going deep now. And Romel says, all the leaders in bed together, they having a good time. PLP and FNM, it's like a cult. They know every 5 years PLP, FNM will hold a position. Opportunity is for them to party. So are you concerned, KCX, that, well, clearly you've said it here a couple of times, you're intimating that if either of the two larger parties were to win the next election, that no matter who wins, they're going to take us down this road. Is that your opinion?
What we can do as concerned citizens is ask the person that knocks on your door, what is your party's position on WTO? Furthermore, what we should do is ask for the leaders of these parties to campaign on what's good about the WTO. Please, our children's lives depends on it, man. We need to grow up. We have an opportunity to be great. We have an opportunity to be able to say, you know something, we came across something, some information that proves that our government don't care about us. I'm saying it straight up. My government is afraid of me. And that's the mindset that every Bahamian should have. Your government should be afraid of you. My government is afraid of me. And every right-thinking Bahamian and people who live in those so-called, quote-unquote, first world countries, they think like that. The government must be afraid of them. Why don't my government come after? Why the government don't come after me? You know why? Because they know they can't touch me. Educate yourself. Understand what rights you have in your country. I stood in the front of the magistrate. You remember when they tried to ban the damaged vehicles from coming in this country? Well, I stood up against that. And we stopped it from happening. Could you imagine what that would have done to these young men? Or what have done to these young people who can't afford to buy a new car? Well, when I stood before the judge, she said to me, Casey, Mr. Colebrooke, you are charged with an unlawful assembly. You are charged with disturbing the peace or whatever, long song and dance. And I said, she says, how do you plead? I said, not guilty. She said, we just pick you up. You can waste the court time? I said, no. I live my life under the Constitution, and the Constitution gives me right to freedom of assembly, and I got rights to protest against my government. She takes the penal code and she puts up against the Constitution, and she says, you know something, Mr. Colebrooke, you are absolutely right. Case dismissed. And we all have the ability to represent ourselves. Just educate yourself. You know what? The only thing I have on anyone else is more time into my craft, you know. No one is smarter than anyone else. The only thing anyone have on you is more time into their craft. So if you take the time to just sit around on Facebook and just criticize all day, you can be good at that. That's all you can be good at, though. You know, get busy, read a book or something, educate yourself. Not to know in this day and time is a choice. And listen what I do. I give you a reward. I have a reward out there for anyone that could prove me wrong in anything I utter. Anything.
Okay. All right. Let me read a couple more comments. Tanisha says, the information had to come from somewhere. Don't you have a classroom online that teaches, the teacher teaches from a textbook that came from where? Facts are facts. And if it is there visible, especially through other places, make the decisions we looking to make, doesn't it make sense to look at them and see the do's and don'ts? Have they profited or lost? Come on. All right. Let's see. Clarice says, Michelle, I did not give that suggestion for your show because the Bahamas knows quite well your ability. That point was for the negative people as to show how many important issues and not. So let me start again. That point was for the negative people as to show how many important issues and have not time to grow hatred among each other. Clarice, thank you so much for clarifying that. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. And I apologize if I came across kind of wrong to you. All right. Let's see. Tanisha says, they have a choice. We just need to set ourselves up where we don't need to heavily rely on others. Can't follow all the time. Well, you know what? Here's the question, though. Is that a realistic possibility? Because the world is heading towards this one world system. It's the new world order. And is it possible for us, being the small nation state that we are, to stand on our own and say, no, we are not going in that direction? Is that an unrealistic expectation?
Well, look at it. Everything that they're implementing, what is connected to it? The internet. The internet has changed the need for globalization. You don't need free movement of people anymore. And people say, no, Casey, there's no such thing as free movement of people. Well, if there is not, we now have something that puts a free movement of people on steroids, the commercial enterprise. Right now, Michelle, we have thousands of people working down at the shipyard right here in Grand Bahama, foreign expat workers. I read something that the other day that said the remittance in the Bahamas is the highest on the planet. The money going out of the country. You know what the Bahamians have? The jobs we have now, for sure, security guards. And you know, today, Michelle, but let me tell you, we did a protest against the maids, against Memories, and against Club Fortuna. The maids are making $2 a room, Michelle, today. $2 a room. And you know, this conversation that I had will stick with me for the rest of my life. When ZNets came out and they interviewed me, I went down in the neighborhood that I grew up in 2 days later, and she said, I saw you on a young lady, she's 22 then, she said, I saw you on television arguing for someone who has a job. I said, are you aware they're only making $2 a room? She said, I would work for $1.50 a room. Why would that stand out with me? When you hear a young person that says that, that's the future of the Bahamas getting ready to settle for working for less. She said, Casey, you just don't understand. I want to be able to come out of my mother's house. I want to feel normal. I want to put on a uniform and go out and do something. We have not prepared this country for the brilliant children that we have. We are not prepared to go global. Even the young men that are selling coconuts on the side of the road, they won't be able to do that anymore. Not in the WTO. All of these people selling the drinks, you won't be able to do that anymore. Can you imagine the intellectual property? It governs even generic drugs. You know how we depend on generic drugs here in the Bahamas? And if we don't be one of these countries that say we're not going to be a part of it, we will suffer. Because one day, if these generic companies, these generic drug companies are not in business, you will die because you won't be able to afford medication to maintain whatever ailment you have.
Well, we actually do have a clip that speaks to that. So Delton, let's play that last clip, please, that I would have sent you.
The WTO is putting the world on the path feared in this prophecy. It puts trade ahead of people and the planet. This bias is evident in how the WTO operates. The decision makers are trade officials, not environmental ministers, not health officials, trade ministers. They meet in secret. They do not get input from the public, from interested non-governmental organizations.
What we are seeing right now in the area of patenting, which is preventing farmers from saving seed and has turned seed saving into a crime, which is forcing countries like India to dismantle its intellectual property rights system, its patent systems that ensure that we have cheap medicine accessible to all, that we do not patent life forms, we do not patent basic agricultural commodities, we do not patent medicines and have product patents on them. All those structures are under dismantling, and every country, all of Africa, India, and the Central American countries, rightful demand for change has been stamped out by the so-called democracy at work within the WTO. The rules of WTO are wrong rules. Changing them will not mean absence of rule. It will mean having rules that ensure that the environment is protected, people's livelihoods are protected, and it is precisely by dismantling at the national level the rules for environmental protection, livelihood protection, cultural diversity, that the criticism of the World Trade Organization is emerging. there is no growth, there's destruction. There's destruction of the environment and there's destruction of livelihoods. The problem is neither trade officials nor the WTO has yet found a way to keep count of that destruction. And that is why we are calling for a freeze on implementation, for a stopping of any further liberalization till those calculations are done. And if the trade negotiators do not have ability to do social and ecological audits, the movements can help teach them.
All right. Claudette says, wow, this is serious. And Bertha says, that's why we're in this mess now. These dumb leaders allowing other countries to dictate to them and imposing them on us. Wake up, people. I thought the people were the government. We sit back and allow these things to happen. Keep sitting back and protecting colors our party and see where we would end up. Break that clip down for us, KCX. What exactly are they saying, and how does that relate to us here in the Bahamas?
Once again, this is where you come with, let's see what it has already done to other people. Those are people from other countries that have implemented WTO under the guise that the GATT, remember GATT from 1995? They, at the success of GATT, they thought they were going to be successful. Not understanding that the rules of GATT did not include services. It did not include Intellectual Property Act. It includes only goods. And here comes WTO, and it includes everything, including service. And service is our number one industry, and banking. Oh, and remind me to tell you about banking also. But here it is. Those rules of the WTO, as to the GATT, the rules were not binding. You were able to pull out. You were able to make adjustments. And you didn't have to make it fair. You had to use something called the MFN principle, where you treat everybody equally. You negotiate it between countries under the GATT. But now under the WTO, whatever rules that are given, whatever treaties or treatment that you give another country, you got to give to everyone. You see? So what they're talking about is, listen, this is what is already done to us. Here is the advantage we have by being a young country, Michelle. We can use the world as a manual. We can look at these countries and see why and how they got there. And the first thing we must do, first of all, is do something they didn't do. Citizens need to become involved in governing their country. You just can't be busy just trying to make a living. I had someone said to me, Casey, you need to give it up and just understand that when the government does damage, we must do damage control. I see it totally different. I see so many weak men running this country. We need strong leadership, Michelle. And the leadership got to come from among us.
But Patrick says in this comment on Facebook, but it is inevitable. Is this inevitable?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Answer this, Patrick. Is this good for your country? If it isn't, stand up. We can be that country that the Bible speaks of that will not be a part of it. And if you see that this has already damaged every country around you, look at what America is going through, man. America can't govern their trade now. But Trump is gone. He was totally against globalization. He has already pulled out of NAFTA, TPP, all of these free trade agreements. They'd already pulled out of them. But because of their agenda, along with the vaccine, all of these things are coming together as this one world government. And you remember Dr. Minnis said, we must understand that we're a part of a one world government. But he doesn't determine that. This is our country. That's the mindset. This is our country, not someone who believed that a failed experiment should be implemented in this country. That's the mindset. So when we see people complaining, wonder why they're complaining. When we see a country failing, why are they failing? They're failing because the citizens of that country trusted their government. If America has lobbyists, you don't think we got lobbyists? We were birthed out of piratism. We were birthed out of rum running. We were birthed out of corruption. We were birthed out of slavery. And some evil people are still out there. We're the righteous men. And if you feel comfortable to believe that your couple of dollars to hold you together? I'm sorry. Brent Simonet will feel this. There are countries that have more billionaires than we got people. And they come in here to take advantage of paradise and show you how to take advantage and how to live in paradise. We should now be having people serve us at this point in juncture in Bahamian history. We shouldn't still be operating on service. Service is punishment. We should not just be serving people. When Pharaoh saw the people of Israel multiplying, he said, come, let's deal wisely with them. He said, let's enslave them with all manner of service.
I don't agree with you that service is punishment. I believe servitude. There's a big difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's one we disagree on.
Well, I mean, listen, the greatest leader is a servant.
Yeah, well, you could imagine living in paradise and the only thing they want for you and your children is to serve others. We're living in paradise, Michelle. You don't want more than just this? You know how many people, children went to school and came back and the only job is to go in the hotel and smile? I want more for our people, Michelle.
I'm not saying scientists. You have more for your people. I'm not saying that, KCX. But I think we need to be very careful how we talk about service because that is the essence of leadership, to serve.
Agree.
All right? So we got to be careful how we villainize service because listen, Jesus himself said he came to serve, eh? So
yeah, you win that one, Michelle.
All right, then. All right, so let's take this break. And then when we come back, we're going to look at what we can do as a collective to better prepare ourselves to compete on an international market. Stay with us. This is GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Ocean blue is the best in seafood, hey, hey. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. We got fish, conch, lobster, shrimp, everything you want. Ocean blue got it. Ocean blue, friendly and green, best service you ever seen. Ocean blue is the best in seafood, yeah. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. Ocean blue seafood, we are here for you. Ocean blue seafood, no one else will do. Ocean Blue Seafood, located on Burnett Road. Contact us at 393-2160.
At the Shirley Street Plaza, you'll find Le Petit Gourmet, a small cafe that's big on flavor. Handcrafted delights made with love will not only please your palate, but feed your soul. Call us at 394-1251. 8 to 12 minutes is all it takes for a burglar to rob your home or business. Security Systems International provides professional and affordable solutions for both. Call 396-5000 for your customized quote. Gwen's Alterations provides professional services for all your tailoring needs, including face masks to keep you safe and in style. A stitch in time saves 9. So call us today at 393-6227.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all. Schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guest today is KCX. We're talking WTO, Highway to Heaven or Dirt Road to Hell. How will it impact the Bahamas? I want to read a couple of your comments. So Stubbs says, we won't stand up. We just sit around and complain among ourselves, but will not come together to save our lives. Stubbs goes on to say, we are too politically divided to remember we are Bahamians first. I agree with that. Jason says, people were created to be loved. Things were created to be used. The Bahamas is in a negative state because people are being used and things are being loved. Lord, help us all. All right, let's see. Let's scroll down. Claudette says, you know, everyone comes out and say what they can do, and at the end of the day, nothing is done. Everyone needs to come together to make the change. Just don't get in there and do nothing because the people would have put you there to help them, not just your colleagues. Let's do this together. Onward we go, Bahamas. Okay? And Bertha says, Michelle, I watch our people on Facebook. Before they cuss out Minister, they all over the media cussing out Brave, who even don't mind if he would get in power, never dealing with the problem at hand. We in a mess. And Christoph says, my question is, if the FNM and the PLP government have the same objectives, why attempt to join Brave or sit down and negotiate? Everyone's heard the VN already. While the message is very informative and useful, why should anything KCX be taken seriously? That's the elephant. Yeah, right, Christoph. Y'all don't give up easy, boy. Y'all still trying to get us to go down that road, but we ain't going there today. Now, here's my thing. We have to talk about, to me, the elephant in the room is education. Our educational system, which is failing us miserably to prepare us to be any kind of player in any kind of global environment. We putting out kids out of high school who can't read and write. I got a 3-year-old nephew right now who reading. 3 years old. And we got big, grown, teenage boys and girls coming out of high school and can't read cat. So when we putting out this kind of, when we're getting this kind of return from our educational system, we can't even begin to have a conversation about how we can be competitive in a global environment. Competitive in what? We're not preparing our people to compete in anything. So to me, the elephant in the room is, how do we fix our educational system so that we could start producing citizens who could do more than what KCX calls service, what I call servitude? What is your response to that, KCX?
Let's start with, again, common law. Who has the best educational system on the planet? We can use that. And that's a no-brainer. But when you hear people, no matter what they hear, I'm lost for words when I hear some of these people who still look at KCX and say, how can you take KCX serious? You got to check yourself. What have you ever stood up for besides yourself? That's all you need to do. Answer that. This generation of Bahamians, we have got to be the weakest set of Bahamians ever, especially the men. We believe in smoking a cigar and hanging out with our boys and trying to get as much women as possible. That's living. And that's you will die and be forgotten. Great men do great things. Nothing that you've done so far will cause people to remember you. Men are supposed to live that they are never forgotten. So wake up anytime you believe you're coming after a righteous man. whose path is squeaky clean, who stood up for people 24/7. And you don't just hear my voice when it's election time. I stand up against both administrations. I've been arrested by both administrations.
Here's the thing.
When you talk about system, let me talk about system, Michelle. That's a key word. This system that we are in is working perfectly. The system is designed to keep us all in a position of want and in survival mode.
But here's the thing, KCX. This is bigger than you. If we remove you from this conversation, the conversation is still valid. This is something we need to be paying attention to. This is a valid conversation. All right. I think we get again caught up in trivial foolishness, man. Ain't nobody got no time for that.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a funny comment here. Stacy says, I don't know which I'm more surprised at, the fact that you have a 3-year-old nephew who can read, or the fact that you have a 3-year-old nephew. Child, let me tell you, my brother is older than I am, and he's still making baby. So anyhow, let me stay focused. But yeah, my 3-year-old nephew, and guess what? I was talking to my brother last night, and he says, you know, your 3-year-old nephew is reading. I said, what? I said, y'all got him some kind of special program or something. And he said, you know what? He said, this kid is at the point now where he can go on his tablet and find the videos he wants to find. And he found on his own the videos that taught him how to read.
Amen.
He's not in preschool yet. Well, maybe he is, but I don't think he is. I don't think he's in school yet. He's not in school yet. But he found a 3-year-old found on the internet programs that he liked that taught him how to read. And my brother says when they started noticing that this kid was reading stuff, they were like, wait, what's happening here? Because he's not in school. And so they started putting things in front of him saying, what does this word say? What does that word say? And the boy is reading at 3. So it just goes to show you that through technology, we can do so much better than what we are doing right now. But there is no excuse for this level of failure. If a 3-year-old can teach himself to read by finding programs on the internet, what is the excuse? But we have this broken educational system that we, still, the average is not as bad as y'all are saying it is, and it's a different. Come on, man. But yet you rushing to take us to this WTO knowing we are not prepared to compete in anything. What you think will happen at the end of the day? Why do you believe it is KCX that they are pushing so hard towards this?
That's right there, Michelle.
What do you believe is really the motivation behind this?
In 2011, actually 2012, on my talk show, we were talking about WTO. And after the talk show, I got a call from this businessman, and he has a large department store, the largest in Grand Bahama. And he called me, he wanted to see me, and he said, come on over. When I went over, he said, if you only know how on point and on time this conversation is. He said, this is after the PLP had taken over. He said, if the FN had won, he was on a flight coming to Nassau, and he and Frank Watson, who was Deputy Prime Minister then, were flying on the same flight. And he said, when we get to win this 2012 general election, we going straight to WTO. And he said, but that will kill my business if we go to the WTO. Now, this is the largest department store. And Frank Watson said to him, this is a tourist destination. Get into some kind of tourism. And he said, but what about my staff? Tell them get into tourism also. So let me dissect that conversation for you. Frank Watson did not say that will not destroy your business. He knows it would destroy his business. He didn't say, no, this is all you have to do. He's saying, man, look, get into tourism. They know exactly what they're doing. So Michelle, there are lobbyists that are doing this and wanting this, And the only people that will win is people that have manufacturing company on a large scale, that have communications around the world or connections around the world, people who own ports of entry. But every other business, no matter if it's a restaurant, a clothing store, no matter if you own a shoe store, anything, any business, you're finished. And you look around the Bahamas right now. The only people that are complaining is Bahamians, nobody else. The unemployment rate between foreign workers, foreign people in this country is at zero. All of them working. People from other ethnic groups, they're working. And guess what they're doing? They're uniting. We're the only one not uniting. We're the only one fighting and pulling down each other. That's all we doing. We will not unite. For why? Well, is this, are we the children of Cain for real? Are we the cursed? Are we the worst? Are we vagabonds like the Bible speak of? I'm hoping not. That's why I continue to fight. You know? And this is not for me. This is about all of us, man. And this is a real conversation. This is the one we need to say to the PLP and the FNM. Let's campaign on this. Tell us what is good about WTO for our families and for ourselves. This will destroy us, Michelle. This is no joke.
Bertha says, people
utterly destroyed.
Bertha says, people, we are the blame for all the wrongs in the country because we don't even know the power we have as the people, as a people. What is that power? What can we do? Stacy says, leading a country on a global level is not the same as leading it on a national level. What is the power of the people in this situation? What can we do? Do we really have a say?
Like I said, take the attitude that it's my country. Let's take the attitude that it's my country. And the next time you see KCX call for a protest, it'll be an Occupy. It'll be an Occupy, and we are going to...
You know, we always protest and take the streets and, you know, but, you know, you do all the protesting and everything.
I'm saying,
the politicians still do what they want to do at the end of
the day. Again, Michelle, Occupy. We've never occupied.
What do you mean by that?
We've never occupied.
What do you mean by occupy?
You go there, and you go, let's put it like this. Again, this is common law. I can tell you of countries that did exactly what I'm suggesting we do, and they got the governance that they wanted. You can just, the Egyptian Revolution, the Iceland pots and pan revolution.
Explain what you mean by occupy. Describe what that looks like.
We go to Parliament and we let them know we want them to come out of Parliament. We want to put people in there that have the best interests of this country at hand. And that means we want to change the system of governance. We want the people to be able to elect their members of Parliament. We don't want no one to appoint nobody to go ahead and govern us and go into the House of Assembly and have to vote along party lines. That's what this system does. You can't get representation in the system of governance. We want a system where the people select even their senators. The people elect their commissioner of police, an independent commissioner of police. And that's a Republic Bahamas. We want the people to choose who they want to govern this country, to lead them, a president. These are steps in the right direction. But those are our demands once we go out there, that get out of our parliament. This is our parliament. And that's the attitude that the Bahamians need to take. You can't depend on nobody to come to your rescue. We're going to have to do this.
Okay, I want to read a couple comments with regard to this. Stubbs says, we go there and do not leave until they resign.
Amen.
Adrian says, general strike. Sheldon says, there is strength in numbers. And Toriano says, go to Parliament and don't move. That's what I think he means. Stacy again says, Bahamians have adopted everything from America except, I think she meant to say, their level of unity. David Derek says, question, so we need to plan and come together and flood Bay Street before it's too late. That was more of a statement than a question, Derek. Okay. And one more, let's see, this one from Theola says, boy, I won't be surprised if the WTO would eventually change the political landscape of our country by making laws to make it legal for anyone to run for leadership without having to be Bahamian. Does anyone else think this could happen? What are your thoughts on that, ACX?
Actually, the government, Peter Turnquist went to Brussels, and when he got back, he said, listen, we have to remove the regulatory fees and the license fees from the banks, the domestic banks. Guess why? Because the offshore banks don't pay regulatory fees or license fees. And that's one of the mandates by the WTO, that whatever benefits you give to a company that is a part of the WTO, you need to give it to every other WTO member. So here it is. They had to remove the regulatory fees and the license fees from the banks, and the banks didn't even pass that on to the citizens. You see, so that person, that last post was spot on. The WTO is dictating to the Bahamian people. And when he made the statement in the House of Assembly, Glenys Hannah Martin asked and said, she said, well, some of the things that you're asking, it will take a referendum to change them in our Constitution. Did you tell them that? And Peter said, yes, I did. And she said, what did they say? They said they don't care. Go and fix it. We think we're sending men to Parliament. Let me tell y'all guys something. Michelle, you got to forgive me for this. When Mr. Turnquist first got elected, I had a meeting with him, and I said, so what's it like being in Parliament? He said, we are little boys up there. You can't do what you can't fulfill the wishes of your constituents. You are little boys. You only taking orders. He's in the House of Assembly. He's reading the budget. Listen what he's doing. He's reading the budget, and they're accusing him of removing taxes off the airplane and airplane parts simply because he has shares into this company. Listen to these words, Mr. Speaker. This is my first time reading the budget. Who is writing the budget for the Bahamas government? If the Minister of Finance isn't a part of it, that's where we find ourselves. Where we have people in the Parliament who knows how to take orders, who knows how to see wrong and turn their eyes and don't stand up for the Bahamian people. Imagine this. We think that we get representation when our member of Parliament gives us a gift, when they gives us the little packages. But are you aware that parliamentary rules states that no member of Parliament is to give any gift because it can be seen as bribery, and he's to step down, and guess what? $10,000 fine.
Wow.
We don't have representation. We are so far from being free as a people. We are so far from being independent as a people. And this independence that we seek is only going to come when we stand up and push back. Because nobody gives you freedom. You got to fight for it. Now, I don't know, for me coming here today and saying this, if it's going to spur some people to say, let's do something. But let me tell you a secret. I've been doing some soul searching, and I really believe if we can connect with these Junkanoo group leaders, we got them. Because nobody can pull people like those Junkanoo groups. But those are the people that'll be left behind. Listen to these 4 things that Jamaica was distracted on while their country slid to the bottom. They were distracted with their religion, their politics, their sports, and guess what else? Their culture. And that's all Jamaica has. That's all we've been focusing on. And they take this Junkanoo and they now put it in the primary school to make sure keep you occupied so that you don't recognize that your country is sliding to the bottom. But now we're at, it's almost 12 o'clock. We're almost at the end of this. November is the end of this. And that's why they have to call an election before November, because it will be political suicide to call an election after WTO, because you are guaranteed to lose every seat. The kind of shock WTO will have on this country, you will not vote for the governing party. This is exactly why I say they have to call for an election before November. But I say, before you mark your X, the question to ask is, why, if they're taking us there, and this is supposed to be good for us, why are they not saying anything about this WTO? Wisen up, Bahamian people. Our lives are at stake. The way of life for the Bahamian people is at hand. And now is the time to stand. Do your research. And let's link. Let's push back. It's possible.
My God, my God, my God. That's some serious stuff you just dropped there. Okay, so Rochelle says, wow, KCX, you on point. Wow. Boy, Bertha says, oh, that's the wrong one. I mean to put that one up. Hold on, I'm moving too fast. Bertha says, stop putting children in parliament, people. Wake up, please. Boy. Okay. We have 4 minutes left in the show. And so if you had to make a clarion call to the Bahamian people as to what we as a collective could do and should be doing right now, what would that be?
I will be in town on the weekend, early next month, I'll be in town. I would make another call. I'm ready to make this happen. This is the real conversation. Every other conversation, you know, I can remember sitting on Steve McKinney's show and Steve was saying, man, KCX, you've been right so long. We be distracted so easily. And I say to people, stop reading the headlines. The headlines are a distraction. The kind of freedom Michelle Malcolm has on this show right here is what we need for the Bahamas. We need transparency. The government of the Bahamas has probably 2 more items to be WTO compliant. And one of those is, we call it the Freedom of Information Act. And it's called WTO Transparency in Government. See, that's coming. And that's what they're afraid of. Then now on this Freedom of Information Act, that's what we call it. But the government transparency, the reason why they need this is because the Bahamas is going to be a hot spot simply because of our geographical location, especially Freeport, Grand Bahama, and that deep water harbor we have there with the large container port, situated right next to the #1 consumer of the world. When you talk about factories coming here, yeah, you watch the amount of universities that's going to be popping up in America and in the Bahamas, because the cost of living is going to come down so dramatically that it'll be easier to invest in the Bahamas. All of these red tape, they're not moving it because of us. They're moving it because of transnational companies of the WTO. Bahamians need not apply. You remember that word when they were selling BTC? Well, that was the beginning of the downfall. When they wanted to sell BTC, that was the prerequisite of joining making a session to the WTO. You had to liberalize your telecommunication center. And guess what? You had to sell it to a WTO transnational company. It was a game from day one. We've been lied to. And like I said, they can lock me up for spreading propaganda, but they can't, because it's truth. I can show you where all of this information is. We are in so much trouble, but I would be in town early part of next month, and I'd be ready to do it. It's going to take some sacrifice. I think it's possible. We can do it.
All right. KCX, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I think we got a lot of ground covered in spite of the efforts to take us off track. Thank you so much for being a part of GPS. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you so
much. Guys,
that's going to do it.
Thank you. That's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow, you know what it is, Wednesday, we're going to be continuing the series we started last week, Wednesday. Do not miss tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's a Wellness Wednesday, and we're going to be talking about Health Made Simple. And those 7 chapters we started last week, we covered chapter 1 and chapter 2. Tomorrow we're going to continue with 3 and maybe 4, depending on the time. So do not miss the show, y'all. Do not miss tomorrow's show. That's going to do it. It's 1 o'clock. Got to get out of here. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for joining us on GPS. I'll see you guys tomorrow.